So the goal of this tutorial is to get a very simple, goofy animation from Unreal into Houdini using Python. Because a lot of times, especially at my job right now, blueprints for actors will have multiple skeletal mesh components, and sometimes per shot there's like 8 characters, and I do not want to export out animations for every single character. That would take too long for me, and I want to automate it. So I built a tool that where you just select the skeletal mesh component, you put in the path name, and you say export animation sequence, and it'll export it out to this particular path. You hit export and there it is. Now it's on disk as an FBX and you can just pull it directly in. There's 2 here, and that's because it enumerates up. We're going to start off, first off, make sure your real time is turned off. This is a huge problem. It really causes a lot of issues. It's great for automatically updating, but it's really slow on your CPU. So I downloaded this from Maximo, whatever it's called. I just dragged it in, and then I took all the materials and put them into this mats textures thingy folder because I didn't want it jumbled up in here. Let's delete this blueprint class so I can show you how I did it. Whatever, force delete. So I took this skeletal mesh, zeroed them out. I have to, for my particular script to work, I have to make it into a blueprint because that's at work. I scripted this for work. So at work, they're using blueprints and they have several skeletal mesh components of those blueprints. So we're going to turn this into a blueprint. So you just come up here, say convert selection to blueprint class, and we're going to say new subclass, and we're just going to call it this. Okay. And here it is. Here's our guy with his materials and everything else. We're going to save it. And here is our blueprint. Hooray, we did it. Now, inside of this level sequence, I'm going to delete this. We're going to delete this, and I'm just going to go into here, and we're going to drag this blueprint class into here. And then we're going to assign the animation. So animation, this is the animation sequence we want. I'm going to stretch it out to the end of the sequence and right click, go to post infinity cycle so that he just continues doing that crazy goofy dance. So now we have a animation sequence that's applied to this particular blueprint. Now in the studio and on the job, whatever, this is already going to be done for you. I'm just trying to tell you how to do it, how to script it. So you add skeletal mesh component, and then this is the part that you'll export from here. Now this is a gloss over type of tutorial. This isn't like a super in-depth exactly how I'm doing it in Python. I really wanted to get this out because it's been on my mind, the fact that there are almost no tutorials out there for Python in Unreal, and if whoever's doing them, like, there's a few guys out there, but it was so frustrating for me building this tool and other Unreal tools, and I really just wanted to get this information out there to like help other people in their Python journey. So essentially what I'm trying to recreate in Python is when you have a shot, so say we're in shot 10, this is LS animation, but say we're in shot 10, you right click on this guy, you create link animation sequence, you go into shot 10 and you bake the skeleton sequence. You hit OK, you check the right boxes, you record it in world space, that one's really important, and you export to animation sequence. Once that's done, it appears here. You check it out, make sure it's okay. Typically it is. And you are going to right click, asset actions, and export. You then going to navigate to the correct path, and you're going to name it correctly, and then you're going to hit OK, and it's going to export, and then you're going to import it into Houdini using this path, and then you're going to see your animation, right? Like that's typically how it works. You're going to see your animation. But that's only for one component. So that takes a bit of time, you know? to right click, create animation, export out the FBX for every single component. Well, what if you have multiple different characters? What if you have multiple characters and each one of those characters has multiple different components? That's going to take you a lot of time. You know, you got to select 3 different components and oh no, you can't create multiple linked assets for. And the reason I do linked assets instead of just exporting directly from Unreal is because it doesn't work as well. I find that creating linked assets is definitely the most robust way I can find to correctly export out animations for rigged characters. This is definitely the most robust way. So creating that linked animation sequence and then exporting out the sequence itself helps tremendously. And you know, you can't just find the animation sequence inside of, you know, the asset, because what if animation change things, which a lot of times they do change animation pending to the animation that's already there. So like they might make another animation component, which I'm honestly not sure how to do, but you know, you can do it. You can make another animation component on top of this and edit it and then bake it down. If you just export out the animation sequence itself, like its root animation sequence, it wouldn't work. So that's why I always take the components, create a linked animation sequence just in case there's any other animations that the animation department did, and then I export out the animation sequence. Now, again, this is a huge pain. For one character, it's not too bad, but for multiple, with multiple components, it's a pain. So that's what we're trying to solve with this. The way this tool works is you're going to select your component here. You're going to make sure that your sequence, your animation sequence, has the right frames. So sometimes this section here will be stretched out, but the shot above has a different timeline. So you just want to make sure that this part here is like truncated to the right frame for that particular shot. You just want to make sure they start and end at the same time that your shot will. It's this playhead. You can also hit the bracket key or hit this button to also do that. You need to make sure that the playback end is correct to the actual shot. That's what I'm trying to say. And you're gonna put where you want this animation. So let's say this shot is shot 10. Let's get rid of these. These are old. We have shot 10. Let's say this level sequence is actually called shot 10 or something. So that's how you know, like, okay, this is where it's going to go, shot 10. So you would go here, you copy this path, you paste it here, and you make sure you select your components. It can do multiple components for multiple characters too. And then you hit export animation and it brings up this dialog. You uncheck all these other boxes and you just export out your preview mesh here. You hit export and now it'll put it onto a file on disk. In my case, it's here. I have multiple because I had multiple before, but it's the same file. And now here he is. He's a goofy little animation inside of Houdini. While I'm here, the best way I found to make the animation line up using the character import, no one talks about this for some reason, so I'm going to say it. The animation needs to line up to your sequence in Unreal. So if it's 0 to 149 frames in the animation sequence, then Houdini needs to be 0 to 149. That's how it has to happen. I'm going to put this in manual mode. It's not working. There we go. Manual mode. I have a thing here, file caches. So the way it works is you just click this. This is just a recipe that I made. It takes the input, static skeleton. This way everything's just saved out and I only have to worry about the timeline one time. So you set this to 0. You set it exactly to your time frame in here. So it's 0 to 149. You say 0 to 149 here. And now this will work. You just select all these, hit save to disk. I'm not going to do that because I don't need to save this to disk. But the point is, once you save it to disk, this animation skeleton to disk, you can move the time frame and everything's fine. Like, it's not going to mess anything up because the way this FBX character animation thing works, it works by time, which is the time in your viewport. You see how it's changing stuff? It works based on that. So it's very important this is one-to-one to your animation sequence. In the past, I have tried to modify this by frame and by time and messing around with these, and this is what I mean. So these two point caches are identical. This is by frame, and you can see that this is off by just a frame. Why is that? Who knows? Time is the same as this, and even if you cut these off, it'll still be, oh, this is actually working. But why is it off if I put it exactly to 0 to 149? That's exactly what my timeline is. Why is it off? I don't know. That's just a bug, I guess, in the point deform. I don't know what's going on. Like, why is this off? So that's why I always do time, because I know this lines up. Because if you do if you do a movie behind it, it will work. So I always just save out by time, make sure it lines up to my animation sequence, and then I know it'll be good. I can trust that it's good. So let's talk about the code. The code, again, I'm not going to go super in depth. So the way Unreal Python works is you need a bunch of extra modules for a reason. Nothing's like really built in. Everything's kind of external. So you need obviously Unreal. You need, this is for other stuff. I like to say LL for level sequence editor blueprint library. You need this for getting like current level sequence, things like that. Editor level library is another one. You can actually look, if you make a here, if you say subsystem, you can see all the different crazy modules they make you import to do basic stuff. So like editor, actor, subsystem, and they all have, look at the components, they all have different things. You can look at, if you go to the documentation, you can say Unreal editor subsystem, whatever. And it takes a while to find the right one because their documentation isn't great, but you can find like the sub functions here. I'm digressing here. You get the current world. So in my case, whatever your current level is, so mine's untitled right now because I don't actually have one. That's fine. So you're getting the current world this way with this particular syntax. This is how you get the current world. You get the sequencer tools with S, and I don't think I'm actually using this, so I'm going to get rid of this. You don't need anything that's commented, obviously. This is just for me. AIT is asset importer task. Here we're setting a property on that. Here we're getting the asset tools. This is great for like loading dirty packages or reloading or saving packages. The asset tool helpers, get asset tools. You can do a bunch of stuff with this. You can look it up. We're using that LL thing, level sequence editor blueprint library, to look. It pretty much deals with everything inside your level sequence. So anything that's selected, your actors that are selected, your components that are selected, your sections that are selected, your tracks that are selected, things like that. It deals with all of that. So it's really helpful for the sequencer. And you can get the selected bindings. So if you go to get selected bindings, am I in the right? No, I'm in 5. I don't know why it doesn't give me the right version. But if we go here and then you say get selected bindings, get selected bindings, you can see it gets the currently selected object bindings. It's a movie scene binding proxy, it's a type, and it gives you an array. So it's going to give you, essentially, when you select this is called a binding. This is a binding, and this is a binding. This is a component binding, and this is a You can see the binding ID when I hover over it. This is a blueprint or actor binding. And so when we say this is giving me the skeletal mesh component binding. And so essentially when we get the first binding, which gets negated later, and later I get all the bindings, but this is just when I was testing, this is how I wrote it. So you're getting the current binding, you're getting the editor utility library, and then we're saying get selected. I don't think, am I using this? I don't remember. Anyway, here we're getting the asset registry, which is a whole thing. You here also deals with a bunch of asset type stuff you can do. We're doing this for, I think, saving or reloading. Let me see. Get assets by path. Yeah, we're doing it that way. And then get asset by object path. So you can do things like that with this. It's pretty helpful. So this path config, I'll talk about that later, but essentially it just configures paths for me for my directory for where stuff's going to go on my computer, my disk. Main path, this is talking to that module and getting the correct path for me, for my pipeline, how I work. And I'll go over that later. It's getting the focused level sequence. So level sequence, when you say get focused, what that's going to do is that's going to give you, if you're in a subsequence, so say this is it's confusing. So current level sequence is the action, not your current. It's not what's actually current in your level editor. No. It's current is actually your home level sequence. Make way more sense. Level sequence. Parent. So we're going to say parent. This is parent. SHA-10. So we're going to open up parent. We're going to put SHA-10 into here. And now you'll see this is SHA-10. So if you look, if I say LL this, and then I say get focused level sequence, and then I print F, you'll see the focus level sequence is SHA-10. If you say current, so if I current level sequence, this is actually getting your home sequence. So if it's going to get parent in this case. If you had a subsequence within a subsequence, so if I had SHA-10 effects, say, and this was inside of SHA-10, it's going to get parent. So current is the most home sequence you can get. That's parent. Focused is going to get you the most narrowed down where you are currently. It's completely backwards how they have it. Honestly, Unreal Python is very frustrating for me because it makes no sense. Here we're getting the selected bindings. This is just notes. So I'm getting the path, which I'm getting from up here, this put path here, and I'll show you guys how to do that. Here we're just replacing all because for the reason it doesn't like its own hierarchy. When you copy this and put it in here, it doesn't like the all slash all. It doesn't like that for some reason. So to make sure I don't get any errors, I make sure to hard code that out of my path before I do anything else. Don't know why Unreal is like that. Another frustrating fun thing about Unreal. So Anim Factory is like the bare bones how to create. Oh, it tells you all the stuff, all the animal editor properties. Tells you, it's basically like bare bones animation sequence construct, like how it's constructed. Level sequence, we're getting the current focus level sequence. We're getting selected bindings. Exported assets. Assets is a blank array. Anim sequences is a blank array. Current assets, get asset by path. Here we're just testing to see if there's already animation sequences in there, and if it is, then it's gonna up version its name. In this case, there's nothing in that well, we haven't put anything in there. Oh, in this case there is one. So it would rename it to dancing_1. But typically, hopefully it's going to be blank when you run the script. So for binding and bindings, so remember we got every single binding selected. So it's going to get just this in this case. But if you have multiple characters, multiple components selected, it will get all of them, all those bindings. But in this case, we just have the one. It's going to get the parent. So that's going to, in this case, it's going to get this blueprint parent. It's getting the parent name, which is this blueprint name. And then here, if it has parentheses in the name, because a lot when you duplicate this, you'll get a parentheses sometimes. I don't know why I'm not seeing it now, but a lot of times when I'm duplicating that stuff in Unreal, I'll see a parentheses. So it's just getting rid of the parentheses and putting underscore in there, because otherwise it won't work. The script will not work. So that's what this is for. Object binding ID, this is a special thing I finally figured out. This is how you actually get the object binding ID, because you need that when you're getting the object, like the object. It's confusing. This was the only way I could figure out how to do it. I'm not an expert in Unreal Python. This is just how I did it for me. And I'm going to post this code up there so you guys can see it. But so we're getting the bound objects. It's really just hoping you only have one. It should just be one. In this case, it's just going to get this guy, I'm pretty sure. And then here, it's getting the skeletal mesh. Ignore this. This was just me trying something today. I tried doing this without making it a blueprint first, and it didn't work. So that was me just trying that. It gets the skeletal mesh. So this blueprint has a skeletal mesh. Of course, I can't see it. It has a skeletal mesh asset. So that's what this skeletal mesh component is doing. It's getting that asset, or rather, sorry, it's getting this. It's getting the skeletal mesh that's not in here, but like internally what it is. Pretty sure that's how it's working. We're getting the name of the skeletal mesh, so it's just going to be skeletal mesh component. The name is also parent name plus name. So this was a hack I found. If you have multiple characters, they're all named basically the same thing. This is a good way to get around that. Just forcing it to be this guy's name. Plus, like even if this is like 2, your FBX will be called _2 as well. This is just get around like if someone's being very careless with their naming convention. Here we're getting rid of spaces, making underscore. This is where that get assets by path comes in. So here we're testing to see if there's already an asset in the content browser, an animation sequence that already exists in that path. And if there is, then it's gonna just count up one and add that to the name. That just prevents duplicates both on disk and in your content browser. So it just makes sure to prevent duplicates. That's how I'm doing that. Here we're getting the skeletal mesh component, or not component, but the actual skeleton itself. So this is how you get the skeletal mesh, and then you get the skeleton from the skeletal mesh. It's very strange how you have to do that. But yeah, that's how you have to do it. You can look this up, see how it's working. You can look up unreal.skeletal mesh and then skeleton to see how you get different properties from that. But this is how I found I had to do it. So we're extracting the skeletal mesh and the skeleton separately as different attributes that we can use later. Yeah, the anim factory, the preview skeletal mesh has to be the skeletal mesh that we extracted earlier. And the target skeleton has to be the skeleton. This is extremely important, otherwise it will not work. So the anim factory, you're assigning both of these guys. This is how you set editor properties on things, right? Objects in Unreal Python. You give it a quote for the string that you want to edit, and then you pass in an argument for whatever you want to assign it to. So in this case, I'm giving it that AIT, or the asset import task. I'm pretty sure it was called asset import task. Just making sure it's automated. I don't know if this works, or I'm just adding it in just in case. So the anim sequence class, anim sequence, you can't give it this for some reason. I found that you have to leave the parentheses blank, or no parentheses rather. It can't be an instance of the class, it has to be the class itself. So yeah, this is now just the class itself. Let's see what happens. Does it still turn green? No. So this is a new instance. This is the class itself. That's why it's green. Okay. Here, asset tools to create the asset itself. We're giving it the name, the path, or where to create it, the anim sequence class, the actual class itself, and the anim factory. That creates the asset in the content browser. Then this asset registry, get asset by object name, it's literally just getting the same asset, because this doesn't return the actual asset. It returns a reference to the animation sequence as an object, animation sequence object. It doesn't return the actual asset. So that's why I'm doing this hackery to get the actual asset itself, so I can do things later to it. To export so once you create the asset, you need to link it to an actual animation sequence. So once you create it, that's just the first step. You then need to create export options using this doohickey export option. And here, this is just like when you right click in the thing and you say create linked animation sequence. That's what this is trying to do. So let's say here, that's what this is trying to do, this animation sequence by hand. It creates the linked animation sequence, and then it puts it into here, and then you can see it. There it is. It's so goofy. So this is just setting all the correct checkboxes. And then finally, we are using the sequencer tools to export animation sequence. We're passing in world, the focus level sequence, animation sequence, or the reference to the animation sequence itself, the export option, the binding to create that animation sequence for, and we're creating a link to make sure it's linked to that component. And then exported assets, append asset. This is just internally. I'm doing that for later. Animation sequence, append animation sequences. This is again just internally. I'm doing stuff with it later. fbxs, I'm giving it the arguments it needs. The two things I just created, the two arrays I just created. And here we're actually, it doesn't look like we're actually using the animation sequences. But here, am I actually doing anything? I don't think I'm even using this FE stuff anyway. This is just stuff I've tried, I think. But here, this is the only way I found to actually export out the assets correctly. There's other ways to export it out, like there's FBX exporters, but they don't work as well for exporting the assets. So I found that I actually had to export the assets using the asset tools. Doing this list comprehension, it makes a stupid path. It makes that game folder on disk, and then it basically creates the entire file structure for this inside of the folder that you pass in for the argument. So I'm using this move game files to basically extract everything from the game folder that it creates and putting it where I actually wanted it to be to begin with. So that's what this move game files function is for. Ignore this, and here ignore all this, and here is move game files. So here, this is, honestly, I use ChatGPT for this. It's just, I could have done it myself, but it's much faster just to ask it. It basically loops through all the files, see if it ends with FBX, and then it basically moves it to the root directory. and then it removes the game folder after. And that's all this is doing. So yeah, that's essentially it. It took me a while to do. It's so hard to figure out Unreal Python because there's so many things. Okay, so here's the Python configuration. Sorry, the path configuration that I'm doing for this part here, getting main path. This is telling Python where to put it on disk. So this path config is what I use in all my scripts. I import this in as a module, and this is really nice because I can just update this particular script and it would populate through all my other scripts that I have that depend on this module, and everything just updates. So I'm changing particular shot names and things, and all that populates through. Here I'm getting the correct output directory for like a movie, for instance. If I want to export out a movie, this gets the correct output directory. Here is where I'm getting, this is just for me, my pipeline. This is where I like to put stuff on disk. It's getting the focus level sequence. It's getting the name of the level, or the name of the shot, essentially. So if it's, I'm not in one now. So this shot would be LS animation. That's what this would be called. We're changing the shot name just in case we need to, and if not, it's just going to return itself. Here, so Unreal Paths is how I had to do this. Basically, this whole thing gets, basically, this works for me. But basically, this returns your particular project. So this is blank underscore editor. So this would return this particular project that I'm in. This is what it's called, blank editor. So that would be my main project. Well, for me, technically, main project is blank and project is editor, just because this is how I have it set up for work. And then here, we're just formatting it to be correct. Yeah, and that's basically it. So this is really helpful for all my scripts. So I really hope this helps someone out there who is looking to export out animation sequences from Unreal in a really quick and easy way. Hit like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for tuning in.